past maintenance work were performed on the affected wing or landing gear. For better understanding of our viewer, let me tell there are two.
All right, there is more breaking news coming in. President of the United States, Donald Trump, confirms Charlie Kirk's killer has now been arrested. After two fake and false suspects, the FBI was struggling to catch Charlie Kirk's killer. But now President Trump has now stated that Charlie Kirk's killer has finally been arrested. He was earlier at large. There was a swirl of confusion that had earlier gripped the United States, Utah, after the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk, an activist and a close ally of President Donald Trump of the United States. Officials hailed the arrest of one suspect only to reverse the course later. But now, President of the United States, Donald Trump, says Charlie Kirk's killer has now been arrested. After two suspects were taken and then released, they said there's an ongoing investigation and manhunt for the shooter. Charlie Kirk, 31, was shot dead while addressing a large outdoor crowd at the Utah Valley University, UREM. These are the shots of the accused, of the person who's now been arrested. He was running through at that time near Salt Lake City in UREM around 2:20 p.m. on that day. And the Department of Public Safety had also issued a statement. Let me also go across to Pruthart. Pruthart, what are the details we are picking up of the person who's now finally been arrested as the killer of Charlie Kirk?
The very early inputs that are coming in rhythm at the moment, a 3-day manhunt for the man who killed Charlie Kirk at the university in Utah is now finally in custody. That's the one-line breaking update that we are getting at the moment. Further details are awaited. There was a massive manhunt launched by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which was personally being led by the bureau chief there, Kash Patel, and even a $100,000 reward was announced by the US FBI for leads into the arrest. The pictures were released of the man there fleeing the scene that we are running at the moment from the rooftop of the university. It is believed to have been a sniper shot that has killed allegedly Charlie Kirk 3 days ago when he was speaking at a university event in Utah. And now the biggest breaking news update that we have, President Trump has confirmed that the assassin, the man who killed Charlie Kirk, has been arrested. At the moment, the identity of this killer is yet to be ascertained or at least made public. He's in FBI custody, and the most important fact will be about understanding the motives of this killer, whether they were ideological or whether there was something else, and what particularly provoked this man to carry out this attack. Was there a larger conspiracy behind the murder of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk? Was it a political violence case as it has been touted to be? Remember, Charlie Kirk has now been hailed as one of the 4 leading political commentators from the conservative side. In fact, US has also announced the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the Bharat Ratna equivalent of the United States for Charlie Kirk. That was the announcement made by President Trump just a couple of days ago. The entire US government had mobilized its resources to locate this man, the killer on your screen, who was absconding for 3 long days when the world's most popular investigative agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, was on the hunt for him. And now the biggest breaking news development rhythm that we are tracking at the moment, awaiting further confirmation from the United States about the details of what happened, is that he has been finally arrested, and President Trump has responded to Charlie Kirk's assassin saying that he did not deserve this. I think there is a high degree of certainty that we have him in custody, and Charlie Kirk's assassin suspect is what President Trump, the US President himself, has announced to the world now, that is perhaps in custody. We are further awaiting clarifications. The FBI is expected to make an official statement now that the US President has announced that the suspect is likely in custody. What does that mean, and the specifics of it and the implications in the larger investigation is something that remains to be seen. But for the last 3 days, there was a complete state of shock in the United States after conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was assassinated while he was speaking at an event, in a university event on campus in Utah. He frequently did that. He visited various campuses and held debates and discussions with liberals and people from the opposite side of the political spectrum. That was his thing. And during one of these events in Utah, he was killed. The motivations initially reported by the US media was also believed to have been something linked to the idea. stance of Charlie Kirk and his positions on that. However, there are no confirmations on whether that was the case or not. Now that the person is in FBI custody, according to President Trump, those were the facts which will be soon revealed upon interrogation. But as the due process of law is concerned, US President Donald Trump just yesterday had in fact called this killer an animal, saying that he did not deserve this and that he will be treated with the full wrath of the law appropriately. Now all eyes will be on whether the identity of this killer is made public and the motivations are, because this will have international ramifications. We have seen the European Parliament also already having a debate over it, and there was a standoff between a Polish lawmaker in the European Parliament where he requested for a moment of silence there. So there has this entire death and assassination case has divided the entire global left and global right communities on very sharp political violence lines. Now it remains to be seen whether this was a rogue element or whether there was a larger conspiracy behind this rhythm. But the biggest breaking news update, ladies and gentlemen, US President Donald Trump confirms that Charlie Kirk's killer has been arrested after a 3-day, 72-hour-long manhunt by the FBI. Back to
Parth, stay with us. I'm also going to give the latest bit of information coming in. President Trump has now spoken out, and he's not only confirmed Kirk shooter is now in custody, the assassin. He's also said with a high degree of certainty authorities have Charlie Kirk's assassin in custody. He's also said he hopes Charlie Kirk's suspected assassin will get the death penalty. So that's the big breaking news that's also coming in. He's also asserted, President Donald Trump of the United States has asserted he did not deserve this. This is on Charlie Kirk's assassination. The dramatic, shocking visuals that had come in earlier that had shaken everybody. Now the confusion earlier surrounding the killer has now subsided. Earlier it was stated that there were 2 people taken into custody, but now that this tweet has come out from President Donald Trump, it's clear 3 things that he's in fact stated. With a high degree of certainty, they believe that the authorities have Charlie Kirk's assassin in custody. President Trump also says that he hopes that they get the death penalty. And Trump on Charlie Kirk's killer has said that somebody that was very close to him turned him in. So another bit of information coming in, and this time also from Donald Trump himself on Charlie Kirk's assassin. Somebody close to him has turned him in. I hope the suspected assassin gets the death penalty. He also did not deserve this when he talks about Charlie Kirk and the way he was killed. Earlier the suspect was at large. There were 2 wrongful suspects who were arrested, but they were later released. There was an elderly man who was led away in handcuffs. Kirk was, remember, hit by a single bullet after 12:20 p.m. on Wednesday as he took questions beneath a tent in campus. His assassin now in custody. And coming up after a short break, we get you more details. Veterans and families of martyrs protest against India-Pakistan Asia Cup, but IPL chairman backs it. Congress stoops to new low after abusing, now resorts to AI video mockery of PM's late mother.
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी.
One question that came to my mind was, how did so many people gather at one place at a particular time? So obviously, from what I've understood from what you've said, there were people asking for students to gather in different places, correct?
No. It was like the place was fixed. The time was fixed. But the person behind it or the mastermind behind it, I'm also unknown who did it. But there are few conspiracy theories. I don't want to go on them. But yeah, there are a few conspiracy theories like who might have done this.
Let me ask you a question. I'm asking you as a youth. I'm part of. I consider myself a part of the youth in India, and I'm asking you.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel that the frustration, the anger of the youth, the passion of the youth, and everything that you passionately felt for has been somewhere been taken advantage of, given only the kind of rioting, arson that we have seen in Nepal, like to burn down your parliament? I understand there is anger, right? But to burn down parliament, burn down homes, burn down hotels, like many properties which are not even linked, Do you feel that maybe
For
somewhere
sure.
that's been taken advantage of?
So you use that one word called infiltration, right?
Yeah.
So exactly that happened. Because Gen Zs were never supposed to do that. It was ignited by people.
Not counting gang violence. Great.
You get the worst ideas when you have secularism. Men give birth. No borders. America's a terrible country. These things are almost all outgrowths of secularism. But this generation, you guys want something deeper. You want something more.
U.S. most fiery right-wing speaker and U.S. President Donald Trump's close ally, Charlie Kirk, was shot dead. He was shot straight in the neck while giving speech at a uni in Utah.
Just fired a firearm. Shots fired at UVU, Charlie Kirk, turning point.
The 30...
This is Republic Jack Olival Studio. Stay tuned for all the live and breaking news updates. I'm Deepak Suresh Kumar. Let's get started.
President, we would also like to respond to the surprising, shallow and ill-informed remarks made by Switzerland, a close friend and partner. All the more important for Switzerland to avoid wasting the Council's time with narratives that are blatantly false and do not do justice to the reality of India.
Here we call on the government to take effective measures to protect minorities and uphold the rights to the freedom of expression and the freedom of the media. Here we call on the government to take effective measures to protect minorities and uphold the rights to the freedom of expression and the freedom of the media.
That have made remarks regarding India. We are compelled, once again, to address provocations from a country whose own leadership recently likened it to a dump truck. Perhaps an inadvertently apt metaphor for a state that continues to deposit recycled falsehoods and stale propaganda before this distinguished council. Pakistan's systematic abuse of this forum, coupled with its routine manipulation of the OIC as its mouthpiece, has become a familiar pattern. Its pathological fixation on India appears to provide it with existential validation. Yet, we must respond, lest we forget. Lest we forget the carnage of Pahalgam, where Pakistan-sponsored terrorists turned a meadow of joy into a killing field in April this year. Lest we forget 9/11, as the world marks its anniversary tomorrow, even as we witness today the hypocrisy of those who sheltered its mastermind and glorified him as a martyr. Lest we forget Pulwama, Uri, Pathankot, Mumbai. The list is endless, Mr. President. Yet, Pakistan demonstrates the audacity to take the floor today, feigning moral outrage while continuing to finance and shelter the very networks that threaten global security. The international community recognizes this charade for what it is. The world will not forget. India will not forget. Our measured and proportionate response to the Pahalgam attack made that sufficiently clear. We need no lessons from a terror sponsor, no sermons from a persecutor of minorities, no advice from a state that has squandered its own credibility. Mr. President, India will continue to protect its citizens with unwavering resolve. We will defend our sovereignty without compromise. And we will continue to expose, time and again, the elaborate deception of a failed state whose survival depends upon trafficking in terror and tragedy. Mr. President, we would also like to respond to the surprising, shallow and ill-informed remarks made by Switzerland, a close friend and partner. As it holds the UNHRC presidency, it is all the more important for Switzerland to avoid wasting the Council's time with narratives that are blatantly false and do not do justice to the reality of India. Instead, it should focus on its own challenges, such as racism, systematic discrimination, and xenophobia. As the world's largest, most diverse, and vibrant democracy, with a civilizational embrace of pluralism, India remains ready to help Switzerland address these concerns.
One question that came to my mind was, how did so many people gather at one place at a particular time? So obviously, from what I've understood from what you've said, there were people asking for students to gather in different places, correct?
No. It was like the place was fixed. The time was fixed. But the person behind it or the mastermind behind it, I'm also unknown who did it. But there are few conspiracy theories. I don't want to go on them. But yeah, there are a few conspiracy theories like who might have done this.
Let me ask you a question. I'm asking you as a youth. I'm part of. I consider myself a part of the youth in India, and I'm asking you.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel that the frustration, the anger of the youth, the passion of the youth, and everything that you passionately felt for has been somewhere been taken advantage of, given only the kind of rioting, arson that we have seen in Nepal, like to burn down your parliament? I understand there is anger, right? But to burn down parliament, burn down homes, burn down hotels, like many properties which are not even linked. Do you feel that maybe somewhere that's been taken advantage of?
So you used that one word called infiltration, right?
Yeah.
So exactly that happened. Because Gen Zs were never supposed to do that. It was ignited by people who were not supposed to be there. And okay, parliament burning, it's like a very big deal. And burning is not even the solution. Right. And there are a lot of people who even, there is this place called Singadorwar. It has a lot of historical significance.
Yeah.
And somehow it also got burned, like it did.
Yeah.
And Gen Zs were not the ones to do it. They were criminals, basically. And literally.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Very good evening, viewers. You're watching the latest edition of 6 Stories at 6, and I am Rakshita Mishra with you, viewers. We will start with the abuse bomb that is only exploding, viewers. Congress is stooping to a new low. It posts an AI-generated video of Prime Minister Modi's mother and then goes on to justify it. Story number 2, viewers, will be the latest coming in from the aviation world. It's the SpiceJet controversy. A wheel goes missing, viewers. We got it first and we'll tell you all the exclusive details that are coming in on that. Story number 3 is Sujit Balaji's death. Now, his mother has spoken exclusively to Republic TV and has reacted to Sam Altman's suicide theory. Also on the show, we get you the latest from Nepal as there is a division of opinion amongst the protest groups about who should be the chief of its interim government. Also, we get you the latest coming in from Manipur. Republic TV will be taking you through the preparations for Prime Minister's visit in Imphal. And finally, the shocking case from Dallas where an Indian origin man was beheaded in broad daylight. All that on the show, but we start with the big breaking we have on Charlie Kirk's assassination, viewers. We have an update coming in that the police have arrested a suspect in the assassination of Charlie Kirk on the Utah College campus. Now, assassination suspect is in custody. It has been announced by Donald Trump himself. And I quote him. Trump says, I quote, "I think with a high degree of certainty we have him in custody." And he also went on to say that somebody that was very close to him turned him in. Trump says that he did not deserve this. Of course, he's talking about Charlie Kirk, and he was very close to Charlie Kirk, of course. We have Kruta joining us live on the broadcast for more. Kruta, well, Trump exudes confidence. He says that there is high degree of certainty. But what all do we know about this suspect? Because there was information also that was released by the FBI also on him.
Rakshita, for the last 72 hours, there was a very high-intensity manhunt on in the United States, led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation under Kash Patel, to locate this man who was on the rooftops at the Utah University, where Charlie Kirk was shot dead at the event. He was seen fleeing from the scene, and his pictures had gone viral. And in entirety of the United States of America, there was a manhunt for this man. Now, President Trump on US media has himself confirmed with a high degree of certainty. He says that they have the man in custody. In fact, he also went on to say that there was a person who was very close to this assassin, who himself basically gave details to the authorities about whereabouts of this assassin, and following which he was brought under custody, and which Trump believes and the Trump administration's FBI believes that he is the person who is behind the assassination. Now, we are yet to ascertain the identity or understand the political or non-political motivations of this alleged killer behind killing of Charlie Kirk on the Utah campus, whether there were any political motivations or something else, or was there a larger conspiracy at play. These are questions that will be answered in coming days as the FBI now begins intense interrogation of him. What we know so far is that President Trump's administration is committed to for a speedy trial, and in fact President Trump himself has expressed intent to urge the jury to find him guilty of a death penalty in the Charlie Kirk case. We saw this yesterday that President Trump in fact even announced the Presidential Medal of Freedom for Charlie Kirk, which is the highest civilian honor in the United States, and Vice President J.D. Vance himself accompanied the coffin of Charlie Kirk. So it shows the proximity of Charlie Kirk to the US administration and the intent of the administration to pursue swift justice in this matter. But at the moment, what we know is that the would-be assassin is certainly in custody of the FBI, according to US President Donald Trump. Back to the studio.
Yes, Krutarth, of course, there have been a lot of reaction that have also come in on what really caused. We've seen Donald Trump blaming the radical left for this murder. There are many more such reactions that have come in, on social media. In India also is much talked about. But tell us what has been the narrative, so to speak, around this murder. What are the people from Republican Party and from the Democrats? What has really been the assessment of this entire incident?
Well, it has been largely a very polarizing issue in the United States of America, in particular, where the Democrats and the Republicans have been caught onto the ideological lines vis-a-vis Charlie Kirk's personal views. We saw on social media, very shockingly, there's a vast section of US media and people in US who celebrated almost the killing of Charlie Kirk in a manner in which is untoward for any political violence that can be condoned in any parliamentary or any kind of democracy. We also saw bipartisan voices coming out from both the Republican side and the Democrat side condemning the political violence and the act of political violence. However, there was a bit of a commotion in the US Congress when there was a motion brought in to observe 1 minute of silence of prayer for Charlie Kirk. So there have been divisions in the US Congress, the US Parliament as well. We also saw similar apprehensions being at display in the EU Parliament, where a Polish lawmaker proposed a minute of silence for Charlie Kirk. So globally, the global right and left and the political violence that ensues as an outcome of these debates has been on top of the agenda. But at the moment, the priority was to get the legal side of the things out of the way, and the killer is now arrested.
Thank you very much for joining us, Rudarat, on the broadcast with those details coming in on that breaking development. We will now shift our focus to what's happened with this SpiceJet flight that was flying from Kandla to Mumbai airport. Now, SpiceJet yet again under scanner after that terrifying mid-air scare where a plane that was flying from Kandla to Mumbai with a missing landing gear wheel. Yes, you heard that right. Missing wheel. The airline has now been asked to submit an incident occurrence report to the DGCA by the end of this day. 75 lives have been put at stake, viewers. A full emergency was declared at the Mumbai airport. Yet, questions remain on how did this aircraft even take off at the first place? Who signed off on its airworthiness and his passengers' safety being compromised in rush to meet schedules? We put the spotlight on this near disaster and demand answers.
A packed passenger flight, 75 souls on board. Flying with a landing gear, missing a wheel. Chaos at Mumbai airport, panic inside the aircraft. Full emergency declared, even departure at Mumbai airport brought to a grinding halt. This was SpiceJet flight SG2906 Kandla to Mumbai that flew nearly 400 kilometers with a crippled landing gear. The wheel had fallen off during takeoff itself. The pilots were informed only 20 minutes before touchdown when ATC discovered the wheel lying on the Kandla runway. 71 passengers, 4 crew, unknowingly in a potential disaster waiting to happen. Fire tenders, ambulances, emergency crews all scrambled at Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport as a full-scale emergency was declared.
Around 3:45 p.m. the emergency was declared. 3:51 it has landed at Mumbai airport. Between 3:30 to 3:45 is the time when there was an emergency situation in the aircraft, when the pilot in command got to know that yes, there's no wheel, the wheels in the aircraft is missing, and the missing wheel has been found after information to the control command center. The missing wheel has been found at the runway of the Kandla airport. That means while the aircraft took off from the Kandla airport, at that particular time there was outer wheel in the aircraft, but soon after taking off, while it was airborne, there was no wheel in the aircraft. There was no outer wheel in the aircraft. However, SpiceJet has informed us that the outer wheel was missing. It has now been found at Kandla airport at around 3:45 p.m. Precisely, emergency was declared.
The aircraft finally landed on runway 27 at 3:51 p.m. A tense, high-stakes touchdown before safely taxiing to the terminal. The big question is, how does a maintenance-cleared aircraft take off with a landing gear wheel missing? Who is accountable for this